I will make you host before leaving because I have a temple service. I'll make you host. So towards that, you have a leave button, right? You see that?
Yeah, it says sharing is not turned on.
Okay. So, oh, okay, okay, okay. So let me do that. Participants. Okay. First, I will make you co-host. Now you should see the share button,
Okay, yes, I see, bro.
right? But you also see there is a leave button. You can see, right?
Okay.
Towards the bottom right, you might be seeing a leave button. Leave,
Okay.
right? That I will make you now host, and that will turn into end. So make sure at 8:30 when the program ends, you just click on that end.
Okay, bro.
Now you are host.
Once the live is on, please let me know.
Yes, please go ahead. I think your live is already on. Yes, Prabhu. Please continue.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to ISKCON of Silicon Valley's Bhagavad Gita class on Wednesdays. So, before we get started, today's topic is on the power of sacred association, and the caption is United we stand, divided we may not. And this is a very relevant topic for both those who are practicing devotees as well as who want to practice bhakti and who are on your own spiritual path. So we'll start with the prayers first before delving into mostly from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. What are the lessons we can learn, and why this topic on association and cooperation is important. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम तत्सत श्री कृष्णार्पणमस्तु। Okay, so since we introduced the topic, so typically when we introduce any concept, we need to understand what its meaning is, and usually find hints in the etymology of the word. So first, we'll look at what is association from an uh, etymological standpoint, as well as we'll discuss what's the power of association, and why sacred association or satsang, and what's the relation between association and cooperation, and why it is essential, especially in this age of Kali Yuga, where there are so many detrimental forces that can hamper our spiritual progress both individually and collectively. So that's what we'll look at today. And this is a relevant topic in the context of celebrating Diwali. One of the reasons is we celebrate Diwali is it's the time of reunion between Lord Ram and his associates back in Ayodhya after he has won the war against Ravana. Now, uh, yeah. Now, what is association? Association comes from the word associate, the verb, right? And associate is split into two parts. One is AS, which has its roots in add, and associate, which has its roots in socius through sociatus. Or, in other words, ad and socius are the Latin roots of the word associate. Ad means toward, and socius means to join or to come together, right? And associate is coming together often with a common purpose or toward a common purpose. Now, when Prabhupada established ISKCON society, this is particularly understood that it is for enriching and enlivening spiritual association between practicing devotees and those who are aspiring devotees. So, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that's what ISKCON stands for, and it's a society, and there is a purpose which is for Krishna consciousness, or advancing toward Krishna, the source of the spiritual and material, pretty much the source of everything. So now, why association is important, or what is the power of association? It's so powerful. Association, in a sense, is that we are always associated with one thing or the other, and it's almost impossible to be alone even for a moment. And why is it the case? Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham mana. So even those who are striving to be in seclusion and practicing their spiritual meditation, or those who are trying to practice their sadhana along with other practitioners, in any of their cases, even if they may be of learned intelligence, still the mind can be uh, troubling them. So the one is always with the mind. So Krishna says that उद्धरेत आत्मनात्मानस आत्मानम अवसादये आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बंधुर आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. So one is always with the mind, which is also the antaratma, and then underneath the antaratma is the jivatma, which is the soul. So who we are. So therefore, we are always associated with the mind internally, and externally we are associated with the body, the people around us, the society at large, and so on and so forth. Now, the way this association works, if we take association as a process in itself, first we choose our association, meaning we choose the circumstances we want to be in to a limited extent. For example, I have the choice to either choose to spend my time reading spiritual literature, associating with spiritually minded people, or doing my work, or doing something else, having recreation. And in each of these pursuits, it's a choice that I make. And after I make this choice repeatedly for a period of time, we subscribe to the choice so strong that the association that is resulting from the choice subscribes to us, and we simply can't let it go. So we uh, consciously become helpless in a sense. And how does it happen? Krishna explains it in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho bhijayate. So initially we pay attention or we choose what we want to associate with. Sangasteshu pajayate. By paying attention, our association takes place. Sangat sanjayate kama. So then there is a progression. From the association, we kind of start desiring what the association, guides us into. And kamat krodho bhijayate. And then, when it fulfills, in case of material association, when our desires get fulfilled, then, we desire for something else. And if it does not get fulfilled, then we get agitated. And that may lead to frustration, anger, and slowly it can lead us to go out of our senses and fall down, meaning degrade ourselves. So that's the power of material association. And even in material association, there are better associations, and there are lower associations. For example, even for those who are uh, not committed to a certain spiritual path, still they may have they may choose to put themselves into a sattva guna or association that is uplifting them, or association that is agitating them, rajoguna, or association that is degrading them, or tamoguna association. And now these three types of associations have the power to either elevate us, that's the uplifting association, literally uplifting, right? And then the second type of association is Rajasic association or Rajoguna association, which has the power to disturb us or agitate us or cause some anxiety and so on. So this is the power of agitating association. It may seem exciting on the positive side or depressing on the negative side. And the tamasic association is when the rajasic association degrades completely into ignorance or madness and so on. So there is a choice initially to subscribe to whichever type of association. And once we subscribe, they subscribe to us, meaning they create our destiny and destinations. And Krishna says this in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa, jaghanya guna vrittisto, adho gacchanti tamasa. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha. Those who are situated in a sattvic association, or those who are situated in sattva guna, they elevate themselves. Urdhvam gacchanti. They go upward or elevate themselves. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. So people who are in subscribing to the Rajasic association, they hang around in the material society. So sometimes in excitement, sometimes tormented, and so on. So that's the Rajasic association. So it is basically in the same plane of existence, neither going leading to an upward destination, meaning elevated destination, or it is not leading to a downward destination in itself. It's hanging around, in there. And there is Jaganya Guna Vrittisto Ado Gacchanti Tamasa. So if one is in a Jaganya Guna Vritti is abominable association. If one is in abominable association, with degrading qualities that will pull a person down. So, in this way, association is something that is beyond our jurisdiction once we choose it. And then it can either pull us up or pull us, around or pull us down. So this is like a rope. That's why the gunas are called as a rope. And from the rope, we can pull, right? So the association, sattvic association can pull us upward, rajasic association can pull us around, and tamasic association can pull us downward. So that's the way association of a person sways them into a particular destination. Now, the association is particularly relevant for us because the scriptures mention that we are tatastha. Tatastha is literally that we are on the shore. So there are different types of living beings, and the most of the living beings in this world uh, are tatastha, meaning they are influenced either by good association or by bad association, right? We all agree that depending on where we associate with, whom we associate with, what we are exposed to, slowly our thinking patterns, our thought processes, they change, they influence our actions, they influence our habits, and so on. That way, we are all impressionable beings, and that makes us, in a sense, both vulnerable as well as conducive for elevation, depending on what we impress ourselves with, right? So, and the association impresses us with certain qualities. For example, Tatastha, or the sand which is on the shore of a river or an ocean, it can either be impressed upon by the wetness of the water or the dryness of the air. So it's the same sand that is present in the ocean as well as on the ground. But depending on where it's situated, it can either be wet or it can be dry. So that way the sand particles are prone to being influenced by either water or air or wetness or dryness, same as heat or cold. So all the dualities of this world can influence the jivatma, the tatastha jiva, who is us, right? So because we are so prone to influence, association is all the more powerful upon us. And therefore, a wise person would choose their association carefully. And now it's important that uh, association is centered around a purpose. For example, if someone says that, a group of friends, they are, going together, hanging out. So sometimes they may feel there is no purpose, but then the purpose is they want to enjoy, right? So, or somebody may be going to a library and studying together. So there is a purpose, which is to advance knowledge in a particular field. Or there may be somebody who is going to a temple or a spiritual community to associate with the sadhus, with the bhaktas or the devotees over there. And the purpose being spiritual elevation. So, in every way possible, uh, association always comes with a purpose. Either we may be aware of the purpose or we may not be aware of the purpose, but there is always a purpose for which we seek association. So, now what kind of purpose uh, can one have? And depending on that, they are making choices in their life, and they are ending up in a particular kind of destination. So Krishna mentions this in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, the different modes in which knowledge is categorized. And why knowledge when it comes to purpose? Because depending on what knowledge we have, we and what nature we have, we pick a purpose. And therefore, um, knowledge and our own faith, uh, they can be categorized into sattva, rajas, and tamas as per the Bhagavad Gita. And the knowledge, which is sattvic, it seeks commonality and collective advancement. So in Bhagavad Gita 18.20, Krishna mentions that knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. And uh, so Krishna says, Sarva Bhuteshu Yenaikam Bhavam Avyayamikshate Avibhaktam Vibhakteshu Tajnanam Vidhi Satvikam. What is Satvika Jnana? He says, Yena, by which Ekam Bhavam, one bhava, or one reality is seen. What kind of reality is this? Avyayam, unchanging reality, right? Or undivided spiritual nature, as Prabhupada mentions. Avibhaktam vibhakteshu. So that is undivided. Avibhaktam, there is no vibhakti. And vibhakteshu, among all the divided beings. So there are different kinds of people, there are different natures of people. And among this, when we see the commonality and take our association in that spirit, that is knowledge in mode of goodness. And this kind of association is elevating because it elevates us to our common source, which is ultimately Krishna. And usually, but the tendency in this world is the other types of knowledge or the other types of purposes one has. And what is that? In the next verse, Krishna says, Pritaktvena tu yajnanam nana bhavam apritakvidan bhavan pritakvidan veti sarveshu bhuteshu tajnanam vidhi rajasam. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. Now, Krishna in Sanskrit, he says, Nana Bhavan, Pritak Vidhan. Pritak is different. Vidhan is types, right? Different type. Nana Bhavan is different realities or different type of living beings or living entity here. So a person who is focusing on the differences only, ignoring the commonality, that person, one should understand that that knowledge is in mode of passion. Why? Because the difference, if it is not presented in a manner that's elevating, it agitates the other people. And this is the Prithak Vidan, Nana Bhavan Prithak Vidan. And that doesn't mean there exists no difference. It's just that when we focus exclusively on the difference and finding no common ground and agitating the other persons, that creates that is rajasic in nature. Now in the next verse, Krishna also talks about the knowledge by which one is attached to only one kind of work as all in all without knowledge of the truth. and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. He says, Yattu kritsnavat ekasmin karye saktam ahaitukam atatvarthavat alpam cha tat tamasamudahrutam, he says. Yet kritsnavat ekasmin karye, as if that one work is all in all, saktam, completely attached to it. Ahaitukam, against any kind of reason. There is no hetu for that. It's like causelessly devoted to something that is binding the person. And what is binding? Atattvarthavat. So it has no tattva. It is atattva arthavat. So it is ignorance or bondage. Alpamcha. So which is without knowledge of the truth. That is atattvavat, atattvarthavat, and which is very meager. That is alpam. Is said to be in the mode of darkness. Tat tamasam udahrutam. And an example of this is trying to cut the very branch one is sitting on. In a tree, an example is given. There is a person who is cutting wood and he's sitting on a tree, on a branch, and he's trying to cut the branch. Now, what happens? Of course, he will end up getting wood, but at the cost of what? His own safety and his own life, right? So when one is focused on only one kind of work without seeing that in relation to the larger picture, the broader picture, and without having knowledge of the truth, and thereby they are ending up destroying the very support that's holding them together. So in different places in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about performing austerities or penances in tamoguna, causing destruction of oneself. And so all these activities which are in ignorance and blind attachment to something that is binding and not elevating the person, not in knowledge of the truth, that is in ignorance. Now, depending on which purpose we seek, of these three types, accordingly, one will be driven to a particular association, and vice versa as well. Depending on which association one is putting themselves in, the purpose of that association will also drive the person toward either sattva, rajas, or tamas. And this applies to material association. And even in a society of practicing spiritualists, because not everybody is completely purified, it is possible that one may have traces of sattva, rajas, or tamas. In fact, it is very likely until one attains perfection or bhava or actually prema that there will be anarthas or unwanted things which are from the gunas, sattva, rajas, or tamas. So, therefore, one must be very careful, even in a spiritual society, of what they are associating and actually who is associating, right? It's the consciousness of the individual that's associating. It's the chitta of the individual that's associating. And with what? With the impressions that are coming from the other beings they're associating with. And in a spiritual society, because the other beings are emanating spiritual knowledge, spiritual realization, and spiritual substance, those impressions are getting associated with our own chitta, and that's how we elevate to sattva and then to shuddha sattva. So similarly, if we are agitating ourselves, uh, or if we are associating with those who are agitating us, then that is what we are cultivating. And similarly, if we are associating with those who are mad, Or why madness? Because it's a characteristic of tamoguna that Krishna mentions pramada in Bhagavad Gita. So it's and what is madness? Madness is when a person is attached to something as though blind, without any knowledge of the truth, and causing destruction one way or the other, either to oneself or to the society at large. So that is madness. And therefore, it is important that we keep the purpose in mind when we are choosing our association and when we are giving our association to others as well. Because naturally, when individuals meet together, one influences the association as well as gets influenced by the association. Why? Because we saw that we are tatastha, meaning we are at the shore. Depending on which side of the shore we associate with, we pick up those qualities very easily. We are impressionable beings. And therefore, it's important that the purpose is the cornerstone of any association, and we should be watching out for that. Now that we looked at the association in Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, naturally, we understand that sattvic association is conducive for spiritual progress, and that happens in satsanga. Satsanga is satam sanga, or the association of sadhus. Satam is of the sadhus, and sanga is association. And notice that sat and sattva have quite a few things in common, because sattva means the as though it is sat, or as though it is spiritual reality. So sattva guna is very conducive for achieving spiritual realization. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that prasangam ajaram pasham atmana kavayo vidhu saeva sadhushu kruto mokshatvaram apavritam. So what this means is prasangam ajaram pasham. Pasha is a rope. Many of us, those who are from, having Indian language as backgrounds, we know pasha or pasham is rope. Prasangam ajaram pasham. So the sangha or prasanga is complete attachment, or you can say that deep association. Ajaram pasham atmana kavayo viduhu. Of what? Of the worldly or mundane or materialistic impressions or materialistic association is like a rope. Why it's a rope? Because it binds us. We just saw that first we subscribe and then we get subscribed by our choices, right? So that way, prasangam majaram pasham atmanak kavayo viduhu. So uh, those who are learned, they know this. Sayeva sadhushu kruto mokshatvaram apavritam. Now, this association or this attachment, when it is turned toward sadhus, it opens up the doors to liberation or deliverance from the material existence. Mokshadvaram. Mokshadvaram is moksha is the enlightened state, and dwaram is the door or the gateway to enlightenment. Apavritam opens up. And how the same attachment to sadhus instead of materialistic beings, or in other words, instead of uh, orienting oneself to materialistic association, if one takes the same orientation or attachment and reorients them to spiritual beings or those who are sadhus, then the result is exactly opposite. One binds, leading one toward the material world. The other liberates, leading one to the spiritual world. And there is a small distinction here. Now, sadhus may be many types, right? And there can be sadhus who are more into the Jnana Marga are exclusively focused on the knowledge aspect, the Brahman aspect, the intellectual aspect. And those who are sadhus who are into Bhakti Marga, where there is complete a prema or loving service to the absolute truth or the supreme personality. So there is a focus on the person, and in Jnana there is a focus on the impersonal aspect. Now both of these, because they are spiritual truth. Why are both of these spiritual truth? In Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that both Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the three features of the same absolute truth. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So the same absolute truth, depending on how you watch or how you view, appears of three types. And the existence, all of these three aspects coexist, but depending on where we focus, that aspect becomes prominent in our reality. And what are these aspects? One is the Brahman, or the impersonal effulgence associated with the purpose of the Jnana Marga. The other is the Bhagavan, or the purpose associated with the Bhakti Marga, to cultivate a relationship between the practitioner and Bhagavan, the absolute truth, in his fully personal aspect. And in between this is the Paramatma aspect, who is the neutral personal representation of the supreme absolute truth. And therefore, because both of these are parts of spiritual reality, both Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are elevating. That's what I meant by Jnana Marga and Bhakti Marga. They are toward the yoga or associating with the Brahman or Bhagavan, respectively. But now in Jnana Marga, the prerequisites is very high. There's a very high bar. One cannot live a worldly life. They have to renounce the worldly life and undertake strict austerities and perform penances, go to a forest, sit and meditate for hours and hours and hours, and not get distracted, slowly cut down on the bodily requirements, and completely bring one's mind under control, and then turn that inward, pratyahara, and then looking at oneself and realizing the Brahman or the Paramatma in some cases. So that's the yoga paths which are more close to the jnana. And in bhakti path, the association is much more accommodating and considerate, because there is no strict prerequisite in the bhakti path other than having some faith. Ado shraddha. Some faith is required. And when one has some faith, bhakti is so powerful and so pure that when bhakti comes in contact with any living being, automatically the purification takes place, and by the power of bhakti. And the best way to perform bhakti in this Kali Yuga is Sankirtana. That is the dharma of this yuga, to elevate oneself spiritually and attain a spiritual destination. And in Sankirtana, the sum means it indicates association. Sam Kirtana is glorifying or chanting, different depending on how one takes it, but ultimately it is glorifying Bhagavan. And Sankirtana is devotees coming together, spiritual practitioners coming together and performing that glorification to the Bhagavan or to the Supreme Lord. So this is where the element of association and cooperation becomes all the more important. Bhakti is essentially about cultivating divine relationships. In a sense, bhakti can be said as the pure science of divine relationships. That's what bhakti yoga is about. And because it is about relationships, naturally it involves more than a single person, more than the individual themselves. And because the individual has to connect with other beings in a divine sense or with a divine consciousness, therefore, bhakti yogis um, are most aware about cultivating or, um, uh, the importance of divine relationships among the practitioners at a horizontal level as well as with Bhagavan or with God at the uh, uh, upward level as well, vertical level. Now, there are examples of how bhakti can deliver even the lowest of humankind. There are incidents from history that are recorded in the Skanda Purana, where the saint Narad Muni meets with people who are either by circumstance uh, involved in sinful activity or by direct choice. So, in case of Mrigari, he was a hunter, and he was such a hunter that he would kill the animals just half and see them suffer and experience the torture of uh, living only to die. So that's what Mrigari was doing. Not only did he do that, but he felt no remorse for that. So much so that Narad Muni had to tell him that why are you half killing them? Kill them completely at least. So, and then slowly, Mrigari, by the grace of Narad Muni, gave up that lifestyle, and then by worshipping Tulasi and following a pure lifestyle of bhakti, he elevated himself so much that he would be hesitant to even step on ants that were on his way when Narad Muni's friend Parvat Muni visits him. So uh, uh, now the transformation of someone who mercilessly and ruthlessly killed animals, not even wanting to step on an ant, is a huge progress of compassion in one's heart. And that was awakened by bhakti, which came about by the association of Narad Muni. So, this is where the association with saints like Narad Muni is being mentioned. Now, same thing with Valmiki, except that it was mentioned that he was born into a very pious Brahmana family, and then there was a famine or drought for a long time in his place, and his parents were growing very old, and he didn't have any means to support them. So he resorted to robbery and became a dacoit. He was not even hesitant to kill people to loot if necessary. And that was the case of Valmiki in his past uh, past aspect of his life. And then he was so sinful that when Narad Muni came, he could not chant the name of Rama because the names of Bhagavan or God are full of potency, non different from God, and hence they are completely pure. And the names are so pure, but by the ill fate of Valmiki, because he was so used to killing and looting and lot of sinful activity, Because of that, he couldn't spell the name. So Narad Muni asked him to chant the name Mara instead. And Mara in Sanskrit is related to death, the energy of death. And because he was already associating with the deathly energy, killing people, looting, and because of that, he was able to chant that. And when one chanted Mara, 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 repeatedly by the power of japa, so the Vedanta Sutra says, Anandamayo Abhyasat, by abhyas or repetition, one attains the spiritual reality. And we see how it practically happened in the case of Valmiki, that he went on to become such a great rishi that Lord Ram revealed Ramayana to us through Valmiki. And therefore, the power of sacred association is um, utmost it's an utmost blessing one can get in their lives. Similarly, the case of Nityananda Prabhu, who went to a place like a bar today, where there were drunkards and there were all kinds of sinful people, and there he delivered Jagai and Madhai, the two brothers who fell down from their goodness and became addicted to sins and sinful life. And by association with such a saintly personality, they went on to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they elevated themselves spiritually. Similarly, we see in modern history that Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, when he came to the Western world, people were addicted to lots of sinful activities. That doesn't mean everybody was like that, but a certain section of the society where he went, there were people who were product of the counterculture, the hippie culture, and addicted to lots of sinful habits. But they could leave all those sinful habits for a pure lifestyle by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, another saintly personality that we know from the modern era. And this way, we see how saintly association is elevating. Now, sometimes we may not have extraordinary personalities like these uh, available to us all the time. What do we do then? Right? Then we have our peers who are on the path just like us and who are sincere. And because of their sincere practice, they are elevating, and anybody who associates with them also get elevated. The scriptures mention that when one chooses to put themselves in a spiritual path of bhakti marga, by the grace of Krishna, one attains the Guru who presents the Bhakti Lata Bija, or the seed of bhakti in one's heart. Now, what happens when you put the seed in the soil? Well, you water the soil and the seed develops into a plant. And then if there are any animals that come up, one has to protect the plant, right? And then it grows more, it becomes a tree. Fine, the tree is protected from animals, but when storms come up, even the trees may get uprooted. And if the roots are not deep enough. So when the roots are deep enough, that gives a lot of grounding and strength to the tree to withstand storms. But this is applicable when one is extremely spiritually advanced. That there are difficult circumstances in their lives, they are put through storms, and they are not at all affected. Take, for example, Prahalad Maharaj. So he was put through excruciating circumstances. And we know from the scriptures that it did not budge him an inch from his devotion to Bhagavan or Hari. And now, this is an analogy to understand how the roots, when they are so deep, the tree can withstand great disturbances. But now, the situation of many within any spiritual organization, and especially in an organization like ISKCON, is that we are all trying to grow spiritually. And the roots may be deep for a few and may not be deep for others. And when the roots are not deep enough and a person has spent a lot of time, externally the tree does grow in size. But if the roots are not deep, then the tree can be shattered by storms. And this is where the notion of association becomes all the more important. And there is the example of redwood trees, which are among the oldest and the tallest trees known to modern mankind. And they have roots which are not actually deep, and yet they manage to withstand storms for centuries, not just decades. And this is possible due to the interconnected roots they have, or intertwined roots. And the roots of one tree reach out to the other and they lock themselves up in that association. So lock, for a lack of better word, so they support themselves in that association. And this is how they are protected together as a community and individually, despite lacking a lot of depth. And this is the power of association. And of course, uh, as we see, there are different types of associations. There is an association with those who are more spiritually advanced than us. There is an association with those who are similarly spiritually advanced like us. And there is association with those who are less spiritually advanced than us. Of course, we are not going to keep a record of, okay, this person is advanced than me, this person is equal to me, this person is lower than me. But one must have the certain amount of assessment to know where they can derive inspiration from, whether it be association with the seniors, or association with equally equals, or association with more juniors. And by such association and intertwining roots with the other trees, which may have deeper roots, which may have shallower roots, or which may have similar depth roots, then slowly one keeps growing toward the fruit of prema. And now, of course, these are a couple of analogies put together for a purpose. And therefore, it's important to count on our support system and also act as a support for those who can count us as a support system. So this is how association turns into cooperation. The word cooperation is made up of co and operation. Operation is general sense of doing our daily things. Cooperation is together with others. So, and that way, there is not just a single person's agenda, but there is a collective agenda to advance collectively, spiritually. And of course, uh, and at the end of the day, it's an individual journey, and the culmination of the journey is also in cooperation in the spiritual world. If you see in the background of where I'm sitting, there is Govardhan Lila, which just happened recently. And here, the different uh, villages of Vrindavan, the devotees of Krishna, they listen to Krishna's words to discontinue the offerings to Indra and instead offer them to Govardhan. Now, initially, there were different thoughts different devotees had presented. But then everybody agreed upon one decision, even in the spiritual world, that we follow what Krishna, he knows what is best for us, we'll follow his plan. And thus everybody gathered under the Govardhan Parvat. So in the material world, when we practice cooperation, when we practice being in the association, Krishna takes note. When the Prachetas, who were the sons of Prachina Varishad, and they were to populate this world. And before populating the world, they went to perform austerities. And by the grace of Lord Shiva, who became their spiritual master, he trained them in their bhakti toward Krishna or Hari. And then they performed immense austerities for thousands of years. And after that, when Bhagavan or Krishna or Hari appeared in front of them, they offered their obeisances, respects, glorified the Lord. And what did Vishnu say immediately? He said, I am so pleased by your cooperation. So there is no emphasis on so much of austerity. Of course, that's important. But the Lord took note of cooperation. And that is the biggest austerity in Kali Yuga, especially for a spiritual movement that has declared war against Maya and Kali, in a sense, which are pretty much the negative forces that can pull oneself spiritually down. One needs to maintain that kind of a cooperation. And not only it is pleasing to Krishna, but also to his devotees. Srila Prabhupada's quote here, the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate. Now, it's very easy to see the differences and focus on them and make factions. But the real austerity is in focusing on the commonality, which is to ultimately serve Krishna, and to serve the Guru Tattva, and to serve Srila Prabhupada. So, by focusing on the commonality, we can put our differences aside. Then it is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, to the entire Guru Parampara, and ultimately to Krishna. So, by these examples, we have seen how cooperation is very important, because the buddhi is by material nature used to seeing the differences more. That's why in Rajoguna, the jnana is in focusing only on the differences. When one's jnana reaches more sattvic state, then there is focus on the universal principles that hold the movement together, that hold the society together, rather than destroying the fabric of the society, the whole social structure, or destroying the consciousness of an individual. It's important to maintain the spirit of cooperation and elevate them. So, in other words, though there may be differences, we present those differences in a manner that inspires the individual to elevate themselves, than cause agitation and ruckus within the society, and or create factions, in Srila Prabhupada's words. And this is extremely important, and if at all there is a hope for doing this, that will be in the path of Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti Yoga is all about relationships and divine association. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned how there are different types of um, practicing devotees, right? Or different types of devotees: Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Kanishtadhikari, or the highest grade devotee, or a devotee who is in the in between the we can say the Madhyama. Madhyama literally means middle. And Kanishta is the just upcoming or neophyte devotee. So just the classification that way. And each of these have a way to deal with superior association, equal association, and lower association. And Srila Prabhupada especially emphasized one should be in the middle state while practicing. And of course, one should always aspire for the highest state, but practically while dealing, one should be in the middle state or Madhyamadhikari. So the three types of association can be, those who are higher than us. And what does Chaitanya Charitamrita say? How do they deal? Ishvare tad adhineshu बालिषु द्विषत्सु च प्रेम मैत्री कृपापेक्षा यः करोति स मध्यमा. So first is Ishvare tad adhineshu. Ishvara or Krishna or those who are the controllers. And tad adhineshu. So those who are devoted to that supreme absolute truth, meaning those who are devotees. Now, those who are perfected devotees. So how one should be? One should offer, loving service, or prema is the word that's mentioned, loving service. And those who are balisheshu, those who are other practicing devotees, fellow devotees, there should be maitri, there should be friendships. So this is how we cooperate. So those who are higher, elevated, we offer service to them. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4.34. Tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upatekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. They are actually tattvadarshis. Ishvareshu tad adhineshu. The perfected devotees, they are tattvadarshis. And how does Krishna ask us to, deal with them? He says, tad vidhi pranipatena, with respect, pariprashnena sevaya, with respect, inquiring from them and rendering service to them. So the service part is emphasized here. And in general, when we deal with our superiors, we should keep three things in mind, which is pranipatena, be respectful. They have done lots of sadhana, they have gotten lots of divine grace, and they have advanced. And it's Krishna's will that they have advanced. So respect Krishna's will. And pranipatena, with respect. Pariprashnena, ask questions. They may not be there tomorrow to ask from. So ask questions. Sevaya, and offer service. So when we have the opportunity, we should keep this three as the priority, dealing with those who are seniors, those who can share the wisdom from their experience and realizations. And those who are equal, we should maintain friendly terms with them. Sometimes we may be helping them, sometimes they may be helping us. We should understand that they are also on the path like us, and they are our fellow, devotees. And Krishna feels great pleasure when we cooperate and serve together with the fellow devotees, just like the Prachetas did. Krishna appreciated that cooperation. So that's the equal association. And higher association, we saw the examples of Ratnakara or Valmiki's past. Different names are mentioned. Ratnakara is one of the names, but that's not from the Skanda Purana. There's a different name. So Valmiki's past, Mrigari's past, Jagai Madhai's past, the past of the hippies. Each of them dealt with their superiors, whether it be Narad Muni, whether it be Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Srila Prabhupada. In this kind of a spirit, they became receptive to the knowledge that is coming from the superior, and they had the spirit of service, and they asked questions to them on how to like continue on the path further. So that is the example for dealing with those who are superiors. Those who are equals, we saw the example of prachetas. And those who are lower than us, there can be two types. One who are ignorant, the other who are envious. So, okay. So, to those who are ignorant, we are supposed, or we should have compassion, jiva daya. And those who are envious, we can, move on from them. We can, so neglectful just means we can move on from them. So we don't have to focus on them, because instead of fanning the spark, we may end up fanning the envy, and that's not good. Therefore, depending on what our spiritual stature is, we as madhyamadhikaris, or those who are practicing devotees, we can adhere to these types of dealings with those who are higher, equal, or lower than our spiritual realization. Now we have 5 more minutes. So the summary of what we looked at today is that association isn't a choice. We all by default associate with our minds. For example, try for those who are having lots of thoughts, which is most of us. uh, we Even when we sleep, sometimes we may not go to sleep easily. If you do, that's a boon, but most of the world doesn't, and therefore there are so many sleep related concerns, medication, and so on. Now this means even when we are by ourselves, we're actually not all by ourselves. There's always the mind. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanah jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that for those whose minds are under their grip or control, the mind becomes a good friend, meaning they cooperate. The mind cooperates with what the person, the buddhi, wants to do. And for those who are not having their minds in control, their mind controls them, not even letting them sleep peacefully. And thus, the mind is a ripu, or an enemy. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, atmaiva ripuratmanah. So, therefore, association isn't a choice, be it with our mind, right? And therefore, we only can choose the type of association. When we are alone, we are choosing to be with our minds. When we are in a society, we are choosing to be with others' minds. And of course, when we are in a spiritual society, we are choosing to be with the spiritual knowledge, the spiritual realization of devotees. And that is an elevating association, because it is coming from ultimately Shuddha Sattva of Krishna and the pure devotees. And at least being in Satsanga is elevating. Satsanga means association of those who are sadhus. Those who are, in a very generic sense, sadhu means a good person, but in the conventional sense, sadhu refers to a spiritually advanced person. So being in Satsanga, or association of sadhus, is elevating. And Satsanga is also mentioned as one of the most important elements of bhakti. There are 64 items of bhakti that are mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, of which there are 5 most important items, namely to associate with devotees, to chant the holy name of the Lord. This is Kirtan, Sankirtan Japa. To hear Srimad Bhagavatam, this Harikatha. To live in a holy place such as Mathura or Vrindavan. This is again related to sadhus, taking association of sadhus. to serve the deity with great devotion. If you look at 5 of these, 2 of these are directly connected to the association, the most important elements of bhakti. And because that's where everything starts from. And this Bhagavatam mentions, what does it say? Satam prasanga mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tajjoshanadashvapavargavartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati. How Shraddha comes, even the faith that we initially saw as the prerequisite for bhakti, Ado Shraddha, how does it arise? So, of course, there are multiple explanations, but it can arise even from the association of devotees. Even if one doesn't have any faith, but circumstantially they are present in a place where there are devotees discussing Bhagavatam, the bhakti can just rub off. We see, for example, when the Bhakti Vedantas came to Narad Muni, so that time he was just a boy of a maid who was serving the Bhakti Vedantas. And because the Bhakti Vedantas were there, Narada, boy, before becoming the Rishi, he started getting faith in the teachings of the Bhakti Vedantas, and slowly, by their association, he went on to become the great Rishi that we know of today. And this is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, by satsanga, even if someone may not have faith, as long as they are even favorable, they can get faith and advance in bhakti. So satsanga, therefore, is the most important of elements in bhakti, because it is the seed for everything else. By being in spiritual association, one will automatically develop the motivation to chant, to hear, to go to holy places of pilgrimage, to serve the deity form, and so on. Therefore, association is what matters the most. So much so that to for the sake of association, Krishna's plan is sending devotees, and therefore we see Narad Muni going to different places to help people advance spiritually and giving his association. And the other point that we saw is to focus on commonality to connect than focusing on the differences and getting divided. That was the theme of United We Stand, Divided We May Not. Because there is enough division in this world already. And to focus on the commonality and coming to a common platform, and then presenting the differences in a manner that is inspiring to elevate the others. That is how an expert devotee or an expert sadhu uses the differences to elevate them to the common source of all of us, which is Krishna. And that way, when we focus on the commonality, we don't get divided among ourselves, and it protects us both individually and collectively. We see this time and again that in the context of ancient India as well, that when there were invaders who were attacking the temples, and the devotees took help of kings who were in different states and so on to move the deities there and so on. So having a common basis to connect with those who are sadhus, who are devotees, help us both uh, individually as well as collectively weather any storms or any difficulties that are posed on us in Kali Yuga. Therefore, it's important to understand the unity should be the essence, and difference is in just the way we present. Srila Prabhupada also wanted that the ISKCON society uh, also maintains the cooperation with the larger Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and the Sampradaya also maintains the connection to the larger society. Srila Prabhupada said, I did not manufacture anything. Everything is coming from the previous acharyas all the way to Krishna himself. And this is the sum and substance of Sanatan Dharma as well. And therefore, it's important that at different levels of abstraction, different levels of reality, we find common grounds to connect and unite. And that way, we can focus on our strengths and not get divided by our weaknesses. And as we advance spiritually, our faith in our own path deepens and our perspective broadens. So, this will happen because if you see 4.35, after inquiring from a spiritual master, Krishna says that one should see that all the living beings are but part of the supreme, or in other words, they are mine. So यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम एवं यास्यसि पांडव येन भूतान्यशेषानि द्रक्ष्यसि आत्मन्यतो मयि. So seeing the relationship between the living beings to Krishna and Krishna to the living beings is a symptom of Uttam Adhikari. We see that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, just before the verse that I mentioned, Madhya Leela 22.72. So there it is mentioned how the relationship between the commonality between the living entity and the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord and the living entity, that becomes the focus for an Uttam Adhikari. And in this way, we should focus on the commonality instead of dividing ourselves apart. So that's the sum and substance of what I wanted to cover today. Thank you for your attention, and I offer my respectful obeisances to the sadhus and the devotees in case I spoke anything incorrectly, and pray that Krishna be pleased and all the devotees be pleased. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. ओम तत्सत्. श्री कृष्णार्पणमस्तु. हरि ओम.